I did not know she was a princess when I sat down beside her. That is the honest truth. If you ask anyone in my unit, they will tell you I have a habit of walking into situations I do not understand, and somehow walking back out of them safely. This was one of those times. The station was called Aurelian 9, and it was not built for humans. Most of the seats in the main hall were low and curved, made for beings with long, bending bodies. Some seats floated on soft cushions of light, made for creatures who did not like to sit the way we do. My kind, the humans, were the newest members of this big space community. Many of the other beings did not think much of us. We had no claws, no armor, no special powers. We just had soft skin and a habit of getting sunburned too easily. I had been on the station for 3 weeks. I worked for the human office, carrying supplies and paperwork from one place to another. It was not an exciting job, but it kept me busy. That day, my work finished late, and the human dining hall was closed for cleaning. I was very hungry, so I decided to eat in the alien dining hall instead. I told myself it would be fine. I was wrong about how big a deal it would become, but right that nothing bad would happen to me. That is when I saw her. She was sitting alone at the far end of a long table, near a large window that showed the deep blue light of space. Her skin was a soft purple color, and she was very tall, even while sitting. Her eyes were shaped like small crystals, catching the light in strange and beautiful ways. She wore long robes with a symbol stitched onto them. I did not know what the symbol meant at the time. Later, I learned it meant she was next in line to rule her people. Every other seat near her table was empty. It looked like there was an invisible wall keeping everyone away from her. I did not notice this wall. I was holding my tray of food and looking for any open seat I could find. "Is this seat taken?" I asked, already pulling out the chair across from her. She looked at me the way someone looks at a very strange surprise. "No," she said slowly. "No one ever sits there." "Great, more room for my elbows," I said, and sat down. I could feel the whole room go quiet. Forks and spoons stopped moving. Conversations stopped in the middle of sentences. Somewhere behind me, I heard a strange whistling sound, which I later learned was how some aliens showed shock. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, very softly, almost like she was testing whether the words would even come out right, she said, "Nobody ever sits beside me." I shrugged and started eating my food, because it smelled wonderful and I was starving. "Well, that is silly," I said. "Their loss. More noodles for me." Something changed in her face. It took me a moment to understand that she was smiling, in her own way. Her people did not smile with their mouths like humans do. Instead, a soft light seemed to grow behind her eyes, like a lamp being turned on slowly. "You do not know who I am," she said. "Nope," I said. "You want to tell me, or should I guess?" "I am bad at guessing. I will probably say something silly." "I am Sevri Cathal," she said, "first daughter of the Threll people. I am next in line for the throne." She said this like she expected me to be afraid, to move away, to push my tray to the far end of the table the way everyone else seemed to do. "Nice to meet you, Sevri," I said. "I am Danny. I carry boxes for a living, mostly." "You are not afraid?" she asked. "Not worried about breaking the rules?" "Should I be? My people believe our royal family carries an old sickness. It disappeared long ago, but the old custom remains. No one sits beside the royal family while eating. It is thought to be dangerous, even though everyone knows the danger is gone. No one has shared a meal beside me since I was very young." I looked at my tray, then back at her. "Well, I am human. We are not very good at symbols and old customs like that. Can you pass the salt?" She passed the salt to me. Her hand had 4 fingers and was the color of a deep purple flower. It trembled slightly as it touched mine. I found out later that this small moment spread across the whole station faster than any announcement. People talked about the human who sat beside the Threll princess and did not run away in fear. Some people thought I was foolish. Others thought I had done something brave. I think, honestly, I was just hungry and did not know the rule existed. What followed was not calm. There were meetings I did not understand, letters sent between different groups, and worried officials asking whether my actions meant something bigger than they really did. I was not important enough to attend most of these meetings, but somehow, my name kept appearing in them anyway. What I remember most is not the meetings, though. What I remember is the next day, when I walked back into that same dining hall and found Severi already sitting there, with a second tray placed across from her, waiting for me. "I saved you a seat," she said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "Now you are getting the idea," I said, smiling as I sat down. From that day, we ate together often. She would ask me questions about human life, and I would ask her questions about her people. She told me about the deep oceans on her home planet, where her ancestors once lived, long before they built cities in the sky. I told her about rain, something her planet did not have in the same way. She found the idea of falling water strange and wonderful. She also began to tell me more about her loneliness. Being the heir to the throne meant she had been raised apart from other children. She had tutors, guards, and advisors, but very few real friends. Everyone treated her carefully, like she might break, or like sitting too close might bring bad luck. She said that for most of her life, she ate her meals alone, studied alone, and even played alone as a child. I found this very sad, and I told her so. "You should not be alone all the time," I said one day, while we were eating a strange blue fruit that tasted like sweet lemon. "Everyone needs someone to sit beside them." "That is a very human thought," she said. "Maybe. But I think it is also just a good thought." By the end of that month, more people began joining our table. First, it was a young engineer from her own planet, someone who came from a family with no special status, someone who had never been allowed near the royal family before. Then, a cadet from another alien group joined us, someone who had lost his rank because of an old mistake and felt embarrassed to sit with others of his kind. Then a young human woman from my own department joined too. She told me she liked eating with us because it felt less lonely than eating in the human hall by herself. Nobody planned any of this. It happened slowly, the way good things often do, without anyone deciding it should happen. It simply grew, seat by seat, meal by meal. Not everyone was happy about it. Some of the older Threll leaders were upset. They said I was breaking important traditions, that I did not understand the weight of their history. A few of them visited me directly, speaking in serious tones about respect and old laws. I listened carefully, because I did not want to be rude, but I also did not agree to stop. "I am not trying to break your traditions," I told them. "I am just eating lunch with my friend." They were not fully satisfied with my answer, but they also could not find a real reason to stop me. There was no written law that said a human could not sit beside a Threll princess. There was only an old custom, one that everyone still followed out of habit and quiet fear, even though the sickness it once protected against was long gone. As the months passed, Severi grew more confident. She began speaking up more in meetings. She began asking harder questions of her advisors. She once told me that sitting beside someone who was not afraid of her had shown her something important, that she did not always have to follow old rules simply because they were old. I was reassigned to a different station a year later. It was hard to say goodbye, but we promised to stay in touch, and we did. We sent messages back and forth for years, sharing stories about our lives, our work, and the strange new things we each discovered. 11 years later, Severi became queen of her people. I watched the ceremony from far away, through a small screen on my own ship, feeling proud in a way I did not expect. Before she spoke about laws, treaties, or plans for the future, she said something that surprised the whole gathered crowd. She said that many years ago, a human had sat beside her, without knowing he was breaking an old rule. She said that nothing bad happened. No sickness came. No danger followed. Only a simple friendship, one that changed the way she saw her own people's traditions. Then she announced a new rule for the royal table. From that day forward, anyone could sit beside the royal family during meals. No one would be forced to eat alone, because of an old fear that no longer made sense. I still do not think I did anything amazing. I did not plan to change history. I did not mean to challenge old customs or start new traditions. I simply wanted a seat and a warm meal. And it happened that the seat came with a lonely girl who had spent her whole life eating by herself, because everyone around her was too careful, too polite, and too bound by rules that had outlived their reasons. Maybe that is something special about humans, even if we do not always realize it ourselves. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest. and we are certainly not the most powerful. But if you put us somewhere with an empty seat beside someone who feels alone, there is a good chance one of us will simply walk over and sit down. Sometimes that is enough to change everything. I still eat with Severi whenever I visit her home planet. The royal table is always full now, filled with laughter, questions, and different kinds of food from many different worlds. It is loud, messy, and wonderful. Nothing like the quiet, empty table I first saw all those years ago. Every time I sit down, she smiles that soft, glowing smile of hers and says the same thing she always says. "Pass the salt if you would." And I always do.